To repair or to replace my old headlights? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to adhere to the DIY creed and spend hours of toil and trouble polishing them once again, or to cast them aside and order new ones. Well, sorry Shakespeare, but for me this is a no-brainer. I've paid my dues polishing headlights enough times, and for once I'm going to take the easy way out and buy new ones. And if you think replacing them cost me a ton of money, think again. Not only were they affordably priced, but it took me less time and effort to change them than it usually takes me to polish a faded pair. If you want to see how I did it, stay tuned. If all you're interested in is the process for removing and installing your headlights, we'll go ahead and cover that now. And then later at the end of the video I'll give you an unboxing and a product review for the headlights I bought. And if you're working on a Jeep Compass like this one, you will have to pull off the bumper cover to get to the headlight assemblies, and I already covered that in a previous video. This is a list of the tools you're going to need, although there may be some variation in the screw sizes depending upon what model and year of car you're doing. And the panel tool itself isn't necessary, but it's just useful. It helps taking off any panel fasteners you might have, although you can use a common screwdriver for that as well. To save you the time of going back and watching that whole video about bumper covers, I'll just cover some key points here. First, you take off the screws that connect the bottom of the bumper cover to any dust shield that the engine might have. Those are really easy to get off and comes off pretty quick. Shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes. Next are a set of Torx screws or perhaps Phillips screws that connect the splash shield inside the wheel well to the bumper cover. I'm using a little ratchet wrench on mine because they're Torx type fasteners and it's easier to get them out that way. Again, it only takes a couple of minutes to pull these out. Then we have a set of screws that run across the top just in front of the radiator support. Could be Torx screws, could be Phillips screws. Next are a couple of fasteners back inside the wheel well again, a 10mm hex screw on each corner, holding the very back end of the bumper cover on each side in. Take those out first, and then we're going to use that panel tool, if you have one shown here, or a screwdriver, to pop the little quick release fastener that's inside the wheel well. There's the tool, and there's the fastener. Quick little motion with the panel tool or the screwdriver and it's going to pop right out faster than you can even see happen. There it is. And the last two fasteners are a couple of 10mm hex screws at the top corners of the bumper cover, one on the outside of each headlight. Once these are out, the bumper cover is loose. And you want to get an assistant if you have one to help you pop this thing out because you're still going to have to disconnect the turn signal lights. So having a person help you, one on each side, you can jiggle it and pop it loose and then have your assistant support it while you disconnect the turn signals, which are held in by clips. And then the fog lamps, once these are out, the fog lamps have a 90-degree twist and then they pop right out. That's it for the bumper cover, and once you've set it down carefully, preferably not on its painted side, it's time to take the headlights out. Now you notice I have a glove on now, and that's because it started snowing, and that brings up a point. If you go through a lot of temperature variations like we do here in Colorado, a lot of extreme hot and extreme cold, the plastic connectors that hold these wires to the headlights can get stuck, and you may have to use a pair of pliers to give them a gentle nudge. But normally all it takes is a little finger pressure to turn these things 90 degrees, and then the receptacle pops right out. Now at this point we're almost done. All we need to do is take out 3 small nuts and the whole headlight assembly will come off. My neighbor Piper, who happens to be a mechanic, offered to go ahead and take the nuts out for me so I could hold the camera. Sometimes it's pretty hard to do both at the same time, especially when it's cold. And normally headlights are held on by 3 fasteners, 3 screws or 3 nuts, but I have seen some that were held on with 4. And I might add at this point that it might be useful to use a magnetized nut driver, because this nut is in a kind of a deep recess and it's a little bit hard to reach. And as you're about to see, it's relatively easy to drop that nut, but that's okay. It's very common for all mechanics to drop hardware or tools from time to time. And in aviation, we call that tool pachinko. But no worries, we found it right away. Once the old headlight is out, it's a simple matter of just reversing the process and reinstalling the new ones, and the bumper cover goes on in the reverse order as well. As you can see here, the new headlights came with a protective layer of plastic which I left on until after they were installed, and then I peeled it away. But this picture also gives a rather dramatic illustration of the difference between a new headlight and an old one. And it could be argued that you could make that old headlight look as good as this new one if you had it professionally polished. But as it turns out, my mechanic friend Piper actually does that job for one of the major chains. And when I asked her if she could make one of those headlights look as good as this new one I'm holding, she said it would look good, but it wouldn't look that good. Now, I don't want to ruffle the feathers of anybody that polishes headlights for a living, and I'm not about to disagree that it's perfectly possible to polish them and have them coming out looking really good. I just personally am tired of doing it. And frankly, it's so fast and easy for me to pop that bumper cover off and change these headlights that I don't know if I'm ever going to bother polishing them again. Now, of course, with me, cost is always a factor, so I'm going to show you some of the prices to have your headlights polished and cleaned up by various places. This is the bottom price I've found, and I've heard that this place does a reasonable job, but it still won't make your headlights look like new. Now, this next place costs almost twice as much, but they have a much better reputation. And the products they use, the 3M headlight restoration materials, are some of the best in the business. And finally, I found a couple of places that had prices that were pushing $100, and I'm sure they do an excellent job, but that is an awful lot of money. And now let's look at what I paid for that pair of new headlights from Rock Auto. The ones I bought are at the top of this list, and I know it's a little hard to see because it's small, but the total price for both headlights was $85.79. And if you're curious about the quality of those low-cost headlamp assemblies, I'll include an unboxing video with my own product impressions at the end of this video. But before I leave the subject of the money involved, I'd just like to remind you that I didn't do this project to save money, I did it to save time. I personally find polishing headlights to be a rather difficult job, and I know there's people that can do it quickly and easily, but for me it takes time and I'm just tired of doing it. On the other hand, I can swap these headlamps out even with the bumper cover removal in just a matter of minutes. And frankly, the Jeep Compass that I did this on is the worst case scenario. With many cars, including some later Jeeps, you don't even have to take off the bumper cover and you can swap the headlamps around in just about the time it takes to describe the process. And even if you do have to take the bumper cover off, it isn't always a difficult process. It was so easy to do on my son's Honda that we used to keep an extra set of headlights that was tinted just when we wanted to change the appearance of the car. And the headlights themselves for that car were so cheap, we bought several sets and tried different levels of tint on them until we got the look we liked. But I will never argue with anybody that wants to repair something instead of replace it. I'm just offering this video as another optional way to get the job done. Speaking of job done, here's the finished product. These new headlights look so good I might just have to paint the rest of the car to match. But let's not lose track of the most important reason for having the clearest possible headlights, and that is how well they perform at night. This is just a little split screen footage I generated to give you the before and after effects with the old headlights on top and the new ones on the bottom. Now you'll get an improvement whether you repair or replace your headlights, of course. This is just an illustration of how dramatic the improvement can be. And frankly, the video doesn't even do it justice. The improvement was actually greater than it appears here. So definitely it's money well spent. Yep, it's another unboxing video, but I put it at the end this time because I know some people think they're a waste of time. When I do a product review, I like to give you as much information as I can, including the quality of the packing and shipping. In this case, the packing was a little excessive. There was enough bubble wrap in there to make a Halloween costume out of. And as usual with Rock Auto, we have a box within a box and a free refrigerator magnet. I might just keep ordering from Rock Auto just to get these magnets. Not really. The reason I order from Rock Auto is because locally, where I live in the Denver area, we have very fast shipping from Rock Auto. That may vary where you live. I've heard some people complain about slow shipping, but not for us. If I order from Rock Auto, I'm going to get the product within a few days. Now, I was surprised at first by these headlights, by their heft. These are a heavy product, absolutely as substantial as the original ones that I'm taking off. Now, I'm going to keep the original ones and do some experiments with polishing, but for the price, I wasn't really expecting these things to be made as well as they are. This is a very solid and heavy unit, and I have no doubt it's going to last as long as the originals did. And that's about it for this video. I've actually had these headlights on the car for about 6 months now because I don't like to release a video until I've actually used a product for a while. And after those 6 months of very extreme weather changes, they still look absolutely beautiful and they're performing just fine. Thanks so much for watching, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to my wife and I to get your support, and we do have a lot of new projects coming up this year that we think you'll enjoy. See you in the next video.